Hello, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, wherever you are, welcome to this live stream of die Architektur einer Linie. I'm Elisabeth Nehring. I will give a short introduction to the work of Riki von Falken, the choreographer, and then we will see a half-hour excerpt from the production, die Architektur einer Linie, or more exactly, the first half-hour performed live at Ufer Studios in Berlin-Wedding. And afterwards, we will have the opportunity to talk to the artists, so to have a short Q&A. My colleague Tine is in charge of the chat, so feel free to write your questions into the chat. Riki von Falken has been choreographing and dancing for now over 40 years. I'm always mean to say 20, but now it's 40 years, so it's quite a long time for someone from the dance world. She started dancing in the early 80s in the back then legendary Tanzfabrik Berlin. It was an experimental place for dance, which were quite rare, I think, at this time, especially in West Berlin, which was always a little bit isolated from the rest of the world due to the political situation. So Riki von Falken were participating and dancing in many pieces of her also very young colleagues at this time. They experimented together, they improvised together. And at some point, Riki von Falken realized, I want to do solo work. And that's precisely what she did. Since the beginning of the 90s, she has been the choreographer and the dancer of her own pieces. Riki von Falken is influenced also by choreographers like Merce Cunningham, Trisha Brown, and Stephen Petronius, those great postmodern dance artists from America. She got to know their work during two study visits in New York when she was still very young. And I think that this influence, this inspiration that she got back then in this very, also artistically vibrant city, that you can still perceive it today in her work, from also nowadays. So the radical dance makers from New York of that time did not want to impress with technical virtuosity. They don't want to repeat old familiar forms with their dance, but they were really looking for new possibilities of expression, for the artistic potential that lies in the everyday body, in the everyday and perhaps also very small and minimalist movements. And Riki von Falken, I think, was really strongly influenced by this kind of understanding what dance can be. And out of this, she developed her choreographic solo work, first strongly, again, influenced by visual art and architecture, especially from the sculptor Günther Anlauf, to whom Riki von Falken was married. And the year 2000 was a turning point, I think. She were more concentrating on introspection, the solo White Linen in the year 2000, where she artistically processed experiences with death and loss. So from this point, the work was changing a little bit, but always starting from the question, how do I translate emotions into abstract movements? And I think this is very crucial for her work. On the one hand, abstraction, so you have these completely formal movement patterns, movement sequences, and on the other hand, the feeling that Riki von Falken is completely connected with her own movements. She's absorbed in them and does not just execute the movements. So it's a lot about translation of emotion into abstraction. About the piece, die Architektur einer Linie, I don't want to anticipate or tell too much about how to see or interpret the performance, but I would like to introduce the team. This is very important. So Riki von Falken is in charge for choreography and dance. Oskar Löser is responsible for the live video, Clemens Kowalski, stage, set, and light, and Ralf Grüneberg for music and sound. And they're all four artists are on stage. And Katja Kettner will join us later in the talk. She is responsible for the dramaturgy. I would like to send a few questions in advance in order to draw attention to maybe interesting aspects. Is there a center of the piece is who is at the center? How is the spectator's gaze directed? How is the space used? What is the relationship between dance, music, space, light, and video? How do the artists react on each other? How can we perceive it? And what inner and very personal associations arise while watching the performance? And I think with these questions or thoughts, I would say let's go now into the first half hour of the performance, die Architektur einer Linie. And afterwards, we can discuss all further thoughts and questions with the artists. So have fun. missing the very last part of the performance, to let them breathe and rearrange the room for a moment. I would like to tell a bit about what I'm always impressed of by Riki von Falken's work. And that is that she reduces her movement material to the what I would say very essential, and I don't have another term for it. I think her choreographies are free from everything which is not necessary. It's very reduced, very minimalistic in a way. And in this way, every detail has meaning without being overloaded with a lot of meaning. I think that the movement language is at the same time very precise, but also free and permeable. And that is what characterizes her work for me. So Riki von Falken mastered the art of reduction in a way that has nothing to do with efficiency of movement, I think, but with the knowledge that somehow complexity can arise from the seemingly simple. And I think this is also valid for the piece we saw the first half of right now, die Architektur einer Linie. And now I see that the artists are arriving in the room and rearranging the room. And let's wait for a moment to give some space and breathe for them. Probably also not easy to talk immediately after the performance.
Yeah, okay, alles klar.
So I see Riki coming, and almost everybody is there now at UFA Studios in Berlin-Wedding. I would like to remind you to the chat. We have the chat function. Tina, my colleague, will deliver the questions which comes in the chat to our discussion. Hello everybody, to the artists. We are happy that you are with us. Es ist schön, dass ihr jetzt noch mit uns seid in der kleinen Gesprächsrunde. Das ist die 4. Live-Session, die ihr macht. Congratulations for the 4th live session. You had one other today and 2 others yesterday. So how do you feel right now after this probably very intense experience? Wie geht's euch nach dieser wahrscheinlich doch ziemlich intensiven Erfahrung der letzten 4 Live-Sessions, die auf dem Video übertragen wurden? Wie geht's euch?
Gut.
Lonely.
Danke, gut, sehr gut.
Das Publikum fehlt uns.
Mit einer traurigen Stimme hast du das gesagt. Ja, es ist tatsächlich so, heute 16 Uhr zu starten ohne Publikum, das wird uns, glaube ich, gerade sehr bewusst.
Ja. To start at 4 o'clock and to work without a public is very difficult. We are really missing our audience.
Yeah. And you had you had now a while without the audience. But the audience is there outside, even if you can't see it, and we are not in the same room together. So maybe you can give an impression. What is the initial idea of the piece, die Architektur einer Linie? Achso, entschuldigt bitte, was ist die, so könnt ihr uns ein bisschen was erzählen über den Ausgangspunkt für das Stück, für die gemeinsame Produktion?
Oder ich würde vielleicht kurz einhaken. Alles fing an mit einer Beschreibung eines Schwans. Riki hatte einen Schwan beobachtet am welchem See? plötzlich
Sarkozy.
Sarkozy. Und da beschrieb sie den Schwan in einer sich immer ständig verändernden Linie.
Okay, it started with Riki looking at a swan on Stammelsee and seeing how the swan's constantly changed its shape. That was the starting point.
Sehr schön, dass er das erwähnt, weil ich auch einen Film gemacht habe in den Morgenstunden und der Schwan war unglaublich. Er putzte sich und er hatte Bewegungen von Linien durch den Hals und durch die Flügel, dass ich darüber geschrieben habe und das war dann mein Aufhänger, ja.
To start with, I was watching the swan and I was filming the way the swan was moving its wings and its body and its neck and cleaning itself. I had to write about it, but that was the original starting point.
Das heißt, die Architektur einer Linie war sehr naheliegend und vor allen Dingen mit verschiedenen Künstlern interdisziplinär auf der Bühne zu arbeiten.
And it was important for me to work with artists from various artists of various forms for light and sound, to work together with them on the stage.
For me, the piece is rather abstract, but can we see the swan on stage? Also für mich ist das ja eher so ein bisschen ein abstraktes Stück, aber sehen wir irgendwo den Schwan? Habt ihr den irgendwo mit auf der Bühne verpackt? Habt ihr den auf die Bühne gebracht?
Ja, der Schwan steht auch für Poesie. Das ist sehr wichtig, dass der poetische Moment auch immer möglich ist.
Yeah, the swan represents poetry, poesy, in its movement and its form.
Und er hat sich auch in die Bewegung hineingearbeitet. Also wir haben sehr viel mit Begriffen wie Abtauchen, Eintauchen, Auftauchen versucht, an diesem Bewegungsimpuls zu arbeiten. Also es gibt einmal choreografisches Material.
Okay, we try to work in words that describe the swan, like diving and surfacing and moving. These all became parts of the choreography.
Und es gibt aber auch unseren wunderbaren Vorhang. Und wer die Session um 2 gesehen hat, da kam der Schwan auf die Bühne.
We also have this wonderful curtain here that we used. If you saw the performance that we did at 2 o'clock, you could see how the curtain was transformed into a swan on the stage.
Katja, you described the work with terms, specific terms. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about this method you worked with during rehearsal. Vielleicht kannst du ein bisschen nochmal erzählen, wie ihr mit diesen Begriffen gearbeitet habt und welche Begriffe es noch gab.
Es gab 2 Wände voll mit Begriffen, die haben sich langsam entwickelt. Wir haben uns immer gefragt, wie können wir miteinander sprechen, also wie können wir gemeinsam reflektieren, wenn wir über Bewegung reden und über Musik reden und über Bühnenbild und Objekte und Projektionen. Also welche Sprache können wir zusammen für uns entwickeln, um einander zu verstehen und gemeinsam zu erforschen, was jeder Teil so wieder reinbringen kann.
Okay. We had 2 walls full of notices of words and terms that would help us to communicate. What we wanted was something that would allow us to communicate with each other, to develop a language so that we could understand each other and interpret how the other people are seeing these things.
Und damit haben sich Wörter entwickelt, also Wörter, die teilweise aus dem Bereich der Architektur kommen, dem Raum oder der Linie oder aus Qualitäten in den Einzelnen, in der Bewegungsqualität zum Beispiel.
Okay. This meant that we started to develop words, often words that could describe space or architecture or rooms, or could describe the quality of a room, the quality of a movement.
Und irgendwann haben wir die Wörter, habe ich die so zugesteckt in den Proben, den einzelnen Personen. Und zum Schluss, wenn man das Stück jetzt weitersehen würde, würde man sehen, dass das auch in der Performance stattfindet, dass es Zettel gibt auf der Bühne, da stehen Wörter drauf und damit wird dann frei improvisiert.
Yeah, what we do now is these words will be given to the people during the performance. We will put the words on note paper, put them on the floor, and then people can read them, and you can see how these words and terms are interpreted in the piece.
Improvisation is maybe the next keyword. So what kind of role plays improvisation for your artistic process and the production? What is the relation between structure, fixed structure and improvisation? Welche Rolle spielt die Improvisation für eure Produktion?
Ja, ich glaube, dass also auf alle Fälle ist die Improvisation und dieses Inspiriertsein in dem Moment ist für uns unglaublich wichtig. Und es ist halt immer ein
Sorry, the improvisation is an important part for us, the improvisation and the inspiration.
Und das ist eigentlich ein Abwägen, auch wie viel Sicherheit, wie viel Struktur brauchen wir und wie viel Freiheit können wir uns geben, auch während des Stückes.
It's a balance between how much structure we have and how much we can improvise that decides the piece that we're playing. It is the balance that we're looking for.
Und Improvisation ist für mich auch nichts, was eine Beliebigkeit hervorruft, sondern dadurch, dass wir so lange daran gearbeitet haben, an dem Material, wir haben eben 8 Wochen intensiv geprobt, aber davor auch immer wieder Sessions gemacht, hat sich eben über diese gemeinsame Sprache eigentlich eine gemeinsame Ebene und ein gemeinsames Bewusstsein ergeben. Das heißt, dass die Thematiken immer wieder auch in der Improvisation aufgegriffen werden können.
Okay. Inspiration for us is not simply randomness. We've been practicing for weeks to do this so that the inspiration, the improvisation becomes a part of the work that is a cooperation with us.
Na, die Improvisation gibt natürlich auch die Freiheit, zum Beispiel mit dem Raum zu spielen. Und der Raum ist zum Beispiel für mich sehr wichtig, weil er immer ein Teil des Stückes ist.
Okay. This improvisation gives us the freedom to play with the space we have. And for me, this is important. The space is the fundamental part of the piece.
To understand it very precisely, that means that there is a certain pattern of how the performance works, and within this pattern there is freedom for improvisation. Ich frage das nur noch mal nach, damit ich das richtig verstehe. Es gibt so eine gewisse Struktur, so ein Pattern für die Performance, und in dieser Struktur gibt es Momente, in denen ihr frei improvisieren könnt. Ist das richtig?
I think that, sorry Bob, I will speak in English.
No.
Yeah. I think that the material actually is the structure. So we have condensed all our materials to the, so due to the rehearsals, we had some essence from the materials, and so we kept this, and we have these materials are at our hands, and we can take them whenever we want, but this is the improvisation part. So, and then if we put something in, it doesn't mean that a certain music comes or a certain choreography comes. So all this is kind of so we pay attention who's doing what, and yeah, this is kind of the structure. Let's say it's the material from my side.
Oscar Löser, we see in the beginning a lot of video, and you talked in the first session, you talked about the video loop station you are working on. Maybe you can explain a bit your work, what you are doing there.
Yeah, maybe I can be more precise today after thinking of it. So the loop station is actually something we invented with Clemens together, and it's a video loop station which people know from the audio world. And the aim was to get out of the computer and to have the eyes on the spot and not in the computer. And we were very inspired by the works of Hans Richter and Oskar Fischinger, who were the early German abstract filmmakers. And I think this was kind of the inspirational part of
And perhaps technical wise, to imagine how this works, it is a camera looking on a lighting table. So every piece you put on this table will be filmed, and out of these films there will be images captured, and these images make a stop motion animation. So it's kind of 5 tracks of a stop motion animation, always performed live. And if Oscar wants to add something new, he has to choose which ones to delete. So this is as well boundaries in his set of instruments.
Ralf Grünberg, especially in the beginning, the music and video goes very close together, or at least today it was very obvious for me. Can you explain how you create the music?
Ich kreiere die Musik aus den Tönen, die im Raum entstehen. Das können Töne sein, die zum Anfang zum Beispiel durch die Klötzchen von Oskar entstehen oder durch die Shutter, die Clemens bewegt, oder durch Bewegungsgeräusche, die Riki macht. Und diese Sachen bearbeite ich mit Effekten zum Beispiel.
Yeah, the tones I use come from the space, from the room, from the sounds and the clang that is produced by the other artist, by the musician. Also, of course, the sounds that Riki makes when she moves through space.
Und die bringe ich wieder in den Raum zurück und nehme sie wieder auf. Also das ist eigentlich auch ein Loop, aber der Raum gibt natürlich immer andere Sounds her, wo meine Position ist, wie der Raum gefüllt ist, ob der Vorhang geschlossen ist oder zum Beispiel offen.
The loop then produces the tones, but of course the tones are always different depending on my position in the room, whether the curtain is in the room, whether we have an audience or not. The sounds and the tones are always different depending on the room.
Clemens Kowalski, you are responsible for the room and all the objects. Maybe you can explain your choice of the objects and how you worked on the room.
I think it is a nice comparison if you have seen the 2 o'clock performance, because this was one of the session formats and it was really crowded, everything was filled. And for the beginning now, so this is what we had in our structure as well, to establish the methods. So to establish what video, what lights, what sound, what Riki can do with her art form. And this blank space, and starting from this emptiness, this was something which is was important for me. And then the object is for me more in the end. For me, it is not as important if it is like this part of ribbon, or it is green or red or yellow. It is a reminder of one of these words. For example, as you said, there's an emotion behind. So what like these objects, they are evolving to trigger objects for ourselves. So we have an impulse, and this impulse can be caused by the action or by the object, which then leads to this chain reaction of artistic impulses on stage. This is kind of how we use it, and then I think it kind of got an emotional sense behind it. Say, okay, this would be interesting, and then you put it in, and then if you see in the rehearsal if the others respond to it, and if not, then you take it out. So this is really like a natural process in choosing what to do. And like the curtain has huge metaphoric. I mean, the theater is full of books about curtains. But we try to use it not in the theatrical, in the theoretic sense, but more about what does it do to us. So of course it divides the room, but it is translucent. So how can we play with it? How can we play with the video on it? And so it's just pieces and things we try out, and it got condensed.
Very interesting. I would like to ask Tina if there are questions in the chat.
Yeah, hi. There are two questions. First of all, one viewer said, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to watch and listen to you. Are there any specific influences, any kind of role models for this work? Do you want the next one too? I go for it. It is said, thanks for the streaming of this great performance. I wouldn't have been able to participate otherwise. And hold on, how did the decision to have all the artists on stage come about?
Maybe I drop in with the inspiration. I think there were a lot of in the concept we wrote. We had a lot of back and forth with some artists, and for my side, I can say that this early filmmakers like Oskar Fischinger and Hans Richter was a really inspirational part for me. I don't know how about the others. Yeah.
Riki, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your influences.
Von meinem Background kann ich erzählen, also das, was ich gelernt habe, dass ich bei Merce Cunningham gelernt habe, bei Trisha Brown gelernt habe, dass ich mit der somatischen Arbeit verbunden bin, dass ich mit Feldenkreis arbeite als Studentin. Das hat dazu geführt, das zu machen, was ich mache.
Yeah, my background is I studied with Cunningham and Brown and Feldenkrais, and the somatic theatre that I learned there has really brought me to the point where I am today.
Ich könnte von meiner Seite, würde ich sozusagen noch Labern ergänzen, weil sozusagen immer, wenn ich in den Raum schaue, merke ich, dass ich dann doch von Labern und der Choräutik und wie er sich den Raum betrachtet und den Körper im Raum betrachtet, dann immer auch sozusagen in der Reflexion wieder da eigentlich herkomme.
Yeah, one of the big influences I had was Laban, particularly in the way that I look at a room and the way that a room affects the performance, the way that space is used.
I think the second question was why you decided to go all on stage.
Das war eine Versuchsanordnung. Und warum? Ich glaube, weil ich eine Herausforderung gesucht habe und ich spielen wollte.
Okay, it started as an experiment, almost as a challenge, and it was a challenge of something that I wanted to play, something that I wanted to perform with.
Also uns verbindet in dieser Kombination schon, uns verbinden viele Arbeiten. Wir arbeiten teilweise mehr als 10 Jahre miteinander. Und es gab schon immer natürlich diesen energetischen Austausch, aber der hatte eine andere Richtung. Also Riki war alleine auf der Bühne und wir standen auf der anderen Seite, aber das war schon immer sehr, sehr intensiv und der Schritt war eigentlich die Energie, die schon da ist, auch dazu zu geben, den Impuls dazu zu geben.
Okay, many things have led to this, particularly the exchange of ideas, the exchange of thoughts between us. Some of us have been working together for 20, 30 years, and to work with Riki is very intensive. She works alone on the stage. It's extremely intensive. And we've thought that putting other people on the stage would allow the intensity and energy to be shared.
And perhaps from my side, I think that having us all on stage gives us the opportunity to shorten the amount of time we need to adjust and to react, and as well to share. That's something. I mean, of course, Grüni makes the sounds, Oscar does the video, Riki dance, and me the video and the objects, but there are the opportunities that somebody like Oscar comes and takes away the lamp because he's decided that this is a thing he needs to do for the performance. And on the other side, I could bring in some lights on his table and interact with him on the videos he's doing. So there is, and this I think needs this space and this room and this. This sharing, and this wouldn't be possible if he's sitting behind the FOH.
Mm-hmm. I have two other questions. I heard there's no other question in the chat, but I have two more questions. I also heard that there is a little problem with the upload. So if there is a strange streaming situation, maybe it's due to this problem. We are very sorry about it, but we are going on with the talk, I think. Katja Kettner, you are responsible for the dramaturgy. Maybe you can let us know a little bit about the dramaturgical line of the production and how you worked on the dramaturgy.
Das ist eine sehr komplexe Frage. Es gab da am Anfang kein System.
Okay, an extremely complex question. At the beginning, we had no system.
Wir wussten, dass wir zusammenarbeiten wollen, aber wir wussten nicht, wie wir zusammenarbeiten können, also wie wir uns verstehen können. Und ich bin so etwas wie die Einzige, die immer draußen ist und versucht zu beschreiben, was ich sehe, was ich höre, ich sehe manchmal, da geht der Impuls von dort nach dort rüber. Und ich habe sozusagen hefteweise aufgeschrieben, was ich sehe und dann in die Reflexion gegeben.
Yeah. To begin with, we knew that we wanted to work with each other, but we were not sure how we could work with each other, how we could communicate with them. I feel myself sometimes as an outsider, the person who sees this from the outside, who sees an impulse is coming from here, an impulse is coming from there, and how these things can be joined together, how we can combine.
Und gleichzeitig ist es natürlich wir haben ein Thema, wir haben die Architektur und wir haben die Linie. Und dieses 70% von dem, was in einer Session entwickelt wird, ist wundervoll und bleibt trotzdem draußen. Und diese Momente auszuwählen, woran wir arbeiten wollen, wo ein Duett sinnvoll ist zwischen zwei Personen oder ein Trio auszuwählen, wie können wir zeigen, woran wir arbeiten, wie ist das wahrnehmbar. Darin sehe ich so ein Stück weit meine Aufgabe und dann den Rahmen zu schaffen, dass das möglich wird auf der Bühne. Also eine Konstellation zu bauen, dass es machbar wird.
We've always had a topic that we've wanted to work on. 70% of what we do, what we choose, 2/3 of it. How does this duet, how do these three people work together? How can we become a unit, and how can we develop these ideas further?
Aber vielleicht könnt ihr das auch nochmal from inside beschreiben.
Yes, I was thinking that it's pretty, in the previous talk we talked about the perspectives, and I said, okay, I tried to, during a performance or an improvisation, I tried to imagine the eyes of the others, but never the eyes of Katja. And it's not possible for me to have that eye. And I guess, as Katja said, there's million tons of material, and then Katja says, okay, very nice, but can you focus on this subject or on this, just follow this impulse and don't go too far. And so that is kind of maybe from my perspective the work of Katja. And yes.
Also ich würde sagen, es geht sehr weit raus aus einer klassischen Dramaturgie, wie wir sie aus dem Theater kennen. Es geht sehr viel hinein in, was brauchen wir zusammen, um das zeigen zu können, woran wir arbeiten, was unser Thema ist. Und dafür die Chance zu geben.
It differs a great deal from traditional dramaturgy. We need to work on how are we working together, what is our topic, how we can bring this topic across, and how we can show people what themes and what topics we are working on.
A question to Riki, because it's now very obvious for me that you are giving the position of the outside eye, which has usually the choreographer, you are leaving it up to Katja, to the dramaturge. Also du überlässt ja so die Position, die Außenposition des Auges von außen deiner Dramaturgin. Ja. Ist das richtig?
Ja, und trotzdem ist es ein Prozess, sozusagen die Sprache, die sozusagen verdeutlicht den Arbeitsprozess und dann das, also von Katja und das Antworten von mir, das ist nochmal was anderes als etwas abzugeben, sondern ich würde eher sagen, dass es vertieft und es ist auch ein Impuls wie die anderen Impulse auf der Bühne. Also Entschuldigung, Bob, der Übersetzer muss jetzt noch.
Okay, fine. The short answer is yes. However, the short answer is yes. However, it's a process. The language that we need to make clear what we're doing is a work process. The input and the give and take between me and Katja is important. This, I would say, as an outside eye, this is a starting point, a place where we can give an impulse and an input into our work.
I think time is running. I would like to ask a last question also to Riki. We already talked about it yesterday. You worked for many, many years as a soloist, as a solo artist on stage, and now you have these three other artists from other fields. How is this different from the work on your own, on stage? Wie unterscheidet sich dein Gefühl als Tänzerin und was du auf der Bühne machst, wenn du alleine bist oder jetzt mit 3 Partnern aus einer anderen Disziplin.
Es gibt so viele Resonanzen, die wahnsinnig lebendig sind und eigentlich mich öffnen in verschiedene Richtungen. Das macht diese Lebendigkeit aus.
Mhm.
Well, with the people on the stage, it produces so much resonance, so much aliveness, that all that we do is reinforced and becomes a part of this aliveness.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Riki and everybody. I think that was really interesting. And probably we could go on and on and on, but now we have 5:15. And yeah, I would like to thank you and thank also the audience which followed the talk and the live stream. And I wish everybody a beautiful evening or day wherever you are and whatever time it is. Thank you for dancing. Thank you for making art for us, to the artists, and thank you for watching. And goodbye.
And I want to add something. I would like to turn the camera. Andrea Keitz. Sie ist die Live-Kamera. Sie ist unsere 6. Stimme im Raum, die uns hier ermöglicht hat, nach draußen zu gehen. Anna Pesavento. Live-Editing, ganz herzlichen Dank euch beiden und nicht zuletzt Jonas und Konrad an der Technik. Ohne euch wäre es unmöglich. Ganz, ganz lieben Dank. Und Elisabeth, ganz herzlichen Dank für deine Begleitung und die Fragen, die du uns gestellt hast.
Pleasure.
Und Tine, danke für den Chat.
Bob, danke für die Übersetzung.
Hopefully see you soon in live.
Mhm.